Hello and welcome to another delightfully nautical episode of We Only Look Thin.
Wow.
I don't know, dude. We Only Look Thin. I am Catherine Weigel. I'm one of your hosts. Ahoy. And I don't know.
It's Captain Catherine.
Oh my gosh, please don't. Okay, so I wrote, hi, this is We Only Look Thin. I'm Catherine Weigel. I've lost about 140 pounds, and with me today is...
Donald Weigel, your boatswain or something.
What's a boatswain?
I don't know. It's a nautical thing I heard once in a book.
Okay. Yeah, you did read Moby Dick. Huh?
Yeah, I have lost about 100 pounds,
Oh,
and we're here to talk about nautical things and knots and ropes and all kinds of stuff.
See, when we come up with these cold opens,
Yeah.
I don't know what Donald's going to say. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. So
No.
it goes in many different directions. I'm going to Google boatswain.
No one has ever accused us of strictly rehearsing these before we record them.
But I do listen to some podcasts where it's 100% scripted.
Yeah.
And there's one I listen to. I actually really like the host, but it is 100% scripted. And then I heard her on another podcast and she talks like a human, just like us. But
Wow.
on her podcast, it's 100%, insert laughing ha 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 at this point. And
Yeah.
so anyway, we go with the flow and you get what you get. So.
I'm still trying to work on talking like a human.
I am too, but there are many knots in this episode.
Yeah.
It has actually nothing to do with the ocean, but
Yeah, no, not nautical, but not KNOT,
yeah,
actually.
we love wordplay, which is again great on a podcast. But we are going to talk about untangling knots today.
Yeah, and swarms of behaviors and
BJ fogs.
Yeah, more BJ fogs. So there's a swarm inside a fog.
Yeah.
And it's all wrapped in knots and riddles or something.
You know what? This is what happens. We enjoy making puns, and you're getting the brunt of it, if I have to be honest.
Yeah, the brunt. You're the brunt listeners. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. So last week we tried to do, and I think we successfully did, I shouldn't say tried, give sort of an introduction to BJ Fogg from his book Tiny Habits and the Swarm of Behaviors.
Yeah, so what the Swarm of Behaviors is sort of the opportunity to brainstorm solutions to habits that you would like to add into your life or behaviors that you'd like to add into your life. A lot of times we can think that we are victims to our circumstance. There's no way out. What am I going to do? There's nothing to do. But brainstorming solutions through the Swarm of Behaviors, go back and listen to that episode, we realize that there are lots of little ways that we have the opportunity to make habits change in our lives.
Yeah.
I know.
I like how you made that positive thing.
No, but I think I used to, and I said this in the last episode, I used to go into my boss and be like, well, there's no solutions. I don't make enough money to,
Right.
come up with solutions here. It's your job. But really, there's so much power in realizing that we have opportunities. Whether we want to take them or not is a different question, but we have the opportunity to make new habits. And in this episode, we're going to talk about untangling habits.
Yes, indeed. Like knots.
Yeah.
Yeah, some sort of knot in a rope thing
Yes.
that we mentioned before.
We did. So a lot of times, and this is what Mr. Dr. BJ Fogg.
Mr. Doctor. I don't know why I find that so funny. He's just Dr. BJ Fogg.
Yeah. Well, he refers to himself as PhD. So it's not like when I'm on a Zoom call with him, he makes everyone call him doctor. So, which I've actually been on Zoom calls with him. I'm Zoom dropping.
Because you are a Tiny Habits certified coach, which is part of the reason we're starting to do some of these dives. Like I read the book something like a year ago, I think, and really got a lot out of it and regretted not having taken a ton of notes while I was reading it, but because there's so much in there. There's so many things to, kind of keep at the, forefront of my thinking, so to speak. And it's nice to go back in and sort of explore a lot of these things because keeping things in mind, we talk about all the time. We'll do an episode, and a week later, I'm like, what did I say about that last week?
It's awful.
It's terrible. Yeah, I don't know if that's a function of getting old or just, human nature or what, but it is nice to do these sort of, deeper dives on tiny, tiny parts of tiny habits.
Yeah.
It's a a richly filled book with lots of stuff. I'm not trying to do an ad for it, but it's really worth reading.
Yeah. So in the Tiny Habits method, he really talks about, how we've all grown up with the notion of breaking a habit.
Yeah.
I remember there was a cigarette commercial where someone actually snaps a cigarette as though that, prevents you from buying another carton of cigarettes.
Yeah. And we've been so taught since we were kids, the idea of breaking a habit. And that implies that if you just, take a short time and exhibit enough force on something, that you can cause it to, to snap and then never do it again.
Right. I mean, we see montages of, like clean out your refrigerator, throw out all the food, dump the bottle in the trash.
Right.
And it's these big sort of, it's almost like we've talked about that lightning bolt moment of like, I've got to make a big change. I've got to make it happen.
Yeah.
But we can throw out the ho-hos and then go back to the store and buy the
Right,
ho-hos.
they have more. They sell more. Like there are places where you can get others. And the other thing that it implies, and Mr. Dr. B.J. Fogg talks about this in the book.
We're going to get a cease and desist
notice.
I
know. The thing that he talks about in the book, how that it is implied and sometimes openly stated that we have a character flaw.
Yeah.
If we can't, if we continue to do a certain habit, that there's something wrong with us. That if we just had a little more willpower, or if we were just raised differently by our parents somehow, that we, wouldn't be doing these things. Or if we just, there's this idea of just don't do it. Just stop.
Well, I think that was Miss Nancy Reagan's problem.
Oh, yeah. Just don't do drugs. I forgot about that.
That's easy. But it implies this big, breaking a habit, defeating a battle, as though it's just exerting all of this force. And if we aren't strong enough, if we don't have the willpower, if we don't have the right motivation, that we're flawed as people. And Mr. Dr. B.J. Fogg says that is reductive.
Yeah.
And I think it is, but for the people who find it easy to change a habit, we have family members who are just like, well, just stop. Just don't. Well, just move more.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've run into those people too that are like, well, why don't you just quit eating those chips? Why don't you just quit? Just don't do it. What's your problem? I don't understand.
Well, and that makes us feel bad. And that might be an upholder thing. We've talked about that with Gretchen Rubin.
Yeah.
Upholders, when they make a choice to make a change, they just do it. And that's the Nike way, is to just do it. But for us, we're complicated folk with complicated desires.
I am not an upholder. I will tell you that much for sure. There is no just deciding to stop doing something. I have to have a process.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I'm taking Mr. Dr. Ed Sheeran. Also, I'm bringing him down.
I didn't know that Ed Sheeran had a PhD.
I don't think he does.
Mr. Dr. Ed Sheeran. Okay, I can't wait hear what he has to say about this.
Okay, so Ed Sheeran actually has a song out right now called Bad Habits.
Oh.
It's really annoying. We listen to TikTok radio on the drive.
Oh my God.
Drive time with our daughter to school. But he has a song called Bad Habits. And it says, my bad habits lead to late nights, ending alone. Conversations with a stranger I barely know. Swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left to lose or use or do. And it's just, he's like, I'm helpless. I can't do anything. I'm a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to change. If I could do the whole switch up parody song like Mr. Dr. Weird Al Yankovic, it just covers all the bases. Mr. Doctor.
I wouldn't be surprised if Weird Al Yankovic actually was a doctor, had a PhD.
Maybe. But we talk about bad habits. It's a bad habit. Gotta stop gotta break the bad habit, breaking bad, whatever. Really? It's unhelpful. It's unproductive.
Yeah.
It's counterproductive to the kind of people we're working on becoming. And when we realize, and maybe I'll send a swarm of behavior chart to Mr. Dr. Ed Sheeran. Let him know he has the opportunity to make changes, but it takes some troubleshooting.
I don't know if that would make as good of a song, though.
I was about to say that.
I have an opportunity to make changes.
Yeah, I'm doing a swarm of behaviors on a Saturday night at the bar, looking at hot ladies.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But, so anyway, so the last
He's at a bar looking at hot ladies? That's the lyric of the song?
Well, that's what it implies. Okay. It implies that
he's
like, he basically has one night stands, which basically for me include tacos.
Yeah.
So replace hot lady with taco.
Yeah, one night taco stands. That's definitely my thing.
Taco stand. We're funny.
Yes, indeed.
So, BJ Fogg there, I'll just get to the quick of it.
Yeah.
BJ Fogg talks about habits being more like untangling ropes, knots that are in rope. You got your shoelace knots. There's so many different kinds of knots.
We're bringing it back to our nautical theme, spelled with a KN.
Sure. But he talks about untangling a rope full of knots. When you're looking at your shoelaces triple dog tied, when you're a kid thinking it was rad.
Oh, triple dog tied.
When
you skipped over double dog tied and went straight to it.
When you're untangling a knot, you don't start at the, meaty center of the knot. You start with where's the end? Yeah. When you're untangling your Christmas wires, at Christmas, you're like, oh, I'm just going to put all the lights back in the box and it'll be fine. And then you open the box next year and you're like, why did I not neatly ravel these instead of just putting them in a pile?
Me every year.
I know. How can I have such disrespect for my future self?
I mean, seriously, I'm like, it's always like, take them down, just throw them in there. We'll figure it out when we take them out. And then I take them out and I'm like, what was I thinking? Old me is so mean.
Exactly. But then we do it again.
Yeah.
But he talks about untangling knots and starting with the simplest, most basic part, the very end that you can unthread. And habits are just the same.
Oh, now I get it.
Yeah. So again, we're not going to read the entire book to you because there's a lot in this book.
There is actually an audiobook you can get and have Mr. Dr. BJ Fogg read the entire audiobook to you.
Yeah. So this is kind of, hopefully, I know it doesn't feel like a Cliff Notes version. You might have wanted to jump off a cliff with all of our predication on this. But he talks about 3 actual stages for changing behaviors. So we're not talking about bad behaviors. We're just talking about unwanted behaviors.
Yes.
So the first thing he talks about, we're getting to the point, is actually he suggests we focus on new behaviors instead of trying to I need to lose weight. Oh, I've got to do whatever. He talks about, what about adding a new behavior, a new habit into your life, totally unrelated to the habit that you would like to stop.
Yeah, it seems a little counterintuitive, but it makes a lot of sense when you really get into it.
Well, I referred to the parents, not that we've done it, but parents make their kids, do sports to keep them from doing drugs, and they're seemingly unrelated, but it's like, keep yourself so busy that you can't do drugs.
No, not unless you count esports. Yeah. Definitely have not done any actual physical sports making of our kid.
Yeah, our kid does not the jock. So that's the way it's going to go. So add a new unrelated habit, learning a new language, joining a club, volunteering. It's not about focusing directly on something that you want to stop doing, but rather investing in the kind of person that you want to be. He says that's sort of the first step of feeling pride and hey, look, I just added this thing into my life. Yay me.
Yeah, and one of the things he talks about a lot in the book is how you change better by feeling good than by feeling bad. And it's a way to, you pick maybe a low-hanging fruit sort of habit to add to your life, and then you can really feel the pride in having accomplished that, and it helps you to then add more because you want to keep that good feeling going.
Yeah, exactly. Step 2 is stopping an unwanted habit.
Yeah.
That's his sort of second line of defense. And then the third is swapping out a new behavior for an old behavior. So those are just kind of that's sort of how he structures it. So add a new habit, stop an unwanted habit, or then the third line is swap out a habit. But today we're going to focus on number 2, the stopping or really troubleshooting ways to stop an unwanted habit. And this is where the swarm of behaviors comes in. Yay!
Oh, yeah. And like we said, we did an episode about swarm of behaviors last week, but we're going to go into it and how you do it for stopping an unwanted habit.
Yep. So in case you don't remember what the swarm of behavior model looks like, we are going to tell you you need a piece of paper and a pen or pencil or, some sort of writing utensil.
Yeah, and there are also places you can download like a pre-made one of these that you can just sort of fill in.
Okay. So step one, paper, pen, we got that. And in the middle of the piece of paper, maybe the size of your fist, draw a cloud in the center.
Yeah, and if you're like me, it doesn't have to be a good cloud.
It's just
be like a circle. It's fine.
Whatever, it's fine. So in the middle of the cloud, write the thing that you want to stop doing. I want to eat less junk food. I want to sit less. I want to stop smoking, whatever it is.
Right.
Write that in the middle of the cloud. And then this is the part where we start troubleshooting the different ways that habit plays a role in your day-to-day life. So this is kind of where we're going to get into to how to do that.
Yeah, so start thinking of 10 or more things that are standing in your way, or 10 or more habits. The big thing might be that you want to eat less junk food.
Yeah.
And think of 10 or more ways in which you are eating junk food, situations in which you're coming across it, or instances where you're doing this unwanted behavior, and write down either instances that you would want to stop or ways in which you think you could curb that behavior.
Yeah. So the question to ask yourself is, what day-to-day circumstances are getting in the way of what I want? So that's
a much better way to put it than I just did.
Okay. So what I want to do is eat less junk food. So really go through your day and consider, even if you want to do this as like a one-day kind of habit to really focus on, really investigate your life. How does junk food play a role in your day?
Yeah.
So, for example, I get an AM peppermint mocha and pound cake at Starbucks. Okay, that's one way that junk food or, food that I don't want to have plays in my life.
Yeah, or like the candy dish at the reception desk at work.
Right.
Or like free snacks in the break room.
Yeah, or stress eating. That's a really big one, but that is a lot of times why I go and get those other things.
Yeah, or like the soda and chips that you always get at lunch. Or, whenever you stop and get gasoline, you always grab a candy bar at the gas station.
Yeah, and for me, it was the wine and hummus and crackers that I used to eat every night. And, hummus, that's not a junk food. It's a whole grain or whatever it is. It's healthy. It's not healthy if you eat 1,500 calories of it.
Yeah, or, you pick up your kid after school and you always go and get like big gulps at the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, our daughter actually the other day was like, hey, what sounds really randomly good right now? Let's get a Jamba Juice, which is basically just like liquid sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I used to make lunch for our daughter and I would snack on the food, like 3 Cheez-Its for her, 10 for me, that kind of just random bites, licks, and tastes.
Yeah, or, you have to have a big, particular dessert after dinner or something, that is contributing. But, write down as many of these as you can think of, but at least 10.
Yeah. And really, once we see all of the ways that something is occurring in our life, it can be really sobering to see all of the ways that it enters our lives.
Yeah,
we think
for sure.
But also what BJ Fogg says is that when we generally say, I want to cut down on junk food, it's such a vague, okay, so did you cut back on junk food?
Right.
I don't know.
Or even the flip side of that, I want to eat healthier. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. Okay. So we've decided that there are more than 10 ways that junk food or, scrappy food, let's call it scrappy food, plays a role in our day-to-day life.
Like Scrappy-Doo and Scooby-Doo.
Now, in the breaking a habit world, we might say, that's it. No more junk food in the whole world. That's it. I'm going cold turkey. It's a new me. I'm never going to eat any of that stuff again. That's what Weight Watchers says to do, or the plan says to do.
Yeah, and I'm picturing the montage where you've got the giant trash bag and you're walking around all these places and you're just shoving the junk food into the trash bag and then you toss the trash bag away and never again.
And that's it. But that leaves sort of a vacuum and a void, because then you're like, oh, good, there's celery left. Oh,
right.
Super fun for me. I don't like celery. Yeah. But that has happened so many times where I make this grand statement And then I can just go back to the grocery store and get the food again. It's not like it's just suddenly never going to happen again.
Right.
So the BJ Fogg tiny habit model is to look at your swarm of behaviors, all the ways that this junk food appears in your day-to-day life, and then decide on one or two. It goes back to that tiny knot, even if it's a garlic knot. And you decide which of those you're open to stopping. Okay, so take a look at your list and put circles around the habits that you think you could actually get yourself to stop. So for example, stopping the candy dish at work, stopping the candy bar at the gas station. Those are like not huge lifestyle changes, but they're super small, sort of tiny steps toward becoming the kind of person that eats less junk food. So if I'm being honest and looking at this list, the biggest caloric impact one is the wine and cheese and hummus at night. That's like a 1,500 calorie giant, elephant in the room. But to start, maybe I can just commit to not having the candy dish.
Yeah.
Just start there. There's there's layer after layer, like a parfait of things that you can do. But start with the one thing that you think you can get yourself to stop. And then once you've untied that knot, what's the next thing that you would be willing to change, that you could modify?
Yeah. And make sure that you're, even if it seems easy, even if it seems simple, make sure that you are congratulating yourself for managing to avoid the candy dish. Like, if that is an easy one for you, maybe that's not an easy one for you, and one of these other ones seems easy to you. But, part of this is making sure that you acknowledge that you have accomplished this and feeling good about it, because these things are not easy. They might seem easy off the top, but all of these add up to get you to a place that you're, where you're unhappy with your behaviors.
Yeah. And for sure. I mean, we used to go, see movies in the before time, in the long, long ago.
A long, long ago.
Where we would get the giant popcorn and the giant side and the giant soda and the giant whatever.
Yeah.
And in the category of eating less junk food, hey, now I get a small popcorn. That is a quantifiable change. Like, I used to get a large and now I get a small. I used to eat an entire tub of hummus and now I just have a little 100-calorie cup. Like,
yeah, and look, I know this isn't for everybody, but like, I'll get the unsweetened iced tea instead of these, fully sugared soda when I go.
Yeah, but actually being able to troubleshoot all the different ways that a habit plays a role in your life, it is really sobering to see all the ways that junk food played a role in my life. And quite frankly, when I finally added up the calories of the hummus and the wine every night at 1,200 to 1,500 calories, that was why is it my thyroid? Oh, I don't understand.
Right.
Oh, it's circumstance. I'm like, oh no. Okay, that is a really big problem. So being aware of all of the different ways that a habit plays a role in your life gives you the opportunity to make small changes. And like Donald said, feel successful. Wow, hey, I don't eat candy at work anymore. That's a great victory.
Yeah, for sure.
Then move on to the next and the next and the next. And then you're becoming the kind of person who really manages junk food.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we're going to do one more swarm of behaviors before we close it out. And this one is about activity or being inactive.
Yeah.
We used to sit all the time. We gamified sitting.
Yeah, it was like reward points for sitting more than moving.
On the weekend, if I went to Target, I was like, oh, that's a big woo.
Exhausted. I need a nap. Yeah, we both made that same sound.
Okay. So again, instead of eating less junk food, I want to sit less. I want to, stop sitting so much. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
So again, the question is, what day-to-day circumstances get in the way of me getting an activity?
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, the close parking spot, or I'll just drive home.
Yeah, it's sort of that, I would drive around the parking lot and drive around trying to find a spot that was maybe 20 feet closer.
Oh my gosh.
So that I wouldn't have to then walk all that way to the, and now I know I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but now it's like I intentionally take a far away, like the first parking spot I find. And, not only do I get more activity in, but it's actually more like it's quicker because I'm not spending all that time driving around the parking lot.
Okay, I almost got into a fist fight before I officiated a wedding because of a parking spot. I'm not going to talk about it here. It was maybe something for therapy, but anyway. Okay, so this is the way that I was inactive. I would try to get the closest parking spot. I would always take the elevator.
Yeah.
I would always sit on the couch after work, like just immediately drop my stuff and sit on the couch.
Sit all day at work with no breaks, stay up late, so that I wouldn't be well rested the next day and then I would be too tired to get in movement.
Exactly. And this was a big one for you, Donald.
Yeah, the efficiency loophole.
Oh.
And instead of actually getting activity and burning calories, I would want to do things the most efficient way possible, meaning like instead of making multiple trips back and forth with items, trying to get them all in one trip so that I would have to move the least amount all the time. It was just this loophole so that I wasn't getting inactivity.
Right. And our sedentary weekends, we used to see like double feature movies on weekends. We would go out to breakfast and then be so exhausted by our double lumberjack breakfast portion that we would literally come home and nap.
Yeah. And, and then not having any hobbies that involved movement or, even really having hobbies much at all that were other than sitting in front of the TV and snacking.
Yeah, exactly. And then like not using the gym membership that I paid for. And then that whole, and this was one of I'm going to give Donald credit for this one.
Thank you.
It's the science says I have to get 30 minutes of activity. And if I can't get 30, there's no way I'm doing anything else.
Yeah, we have this mindset in society, and I had it for most of my life, that there was real exercise and then there was everything else. And if I wasn't doing real exercise, well, then I would do nothing at all. And, real exercise in my mind was going to the gym or going for a run or actually taking like some sort of fitness class. And it turns out that all movement is actually exercise and it all works and it all burns calories. And I don't need to do any of those things that I used to hate doing, like going to the gym or going for runs in order to burn calories.
Right. So that whole, I remember in something about Mary, it was like the 7-minute workout. And it's like 6 minutes. Like no one's going to get fit in 6 minutes. Guess what? I do a 6-minute arm video. Last night, Donald said my arms were looking good.
They are looking good.
Looking good. 6 minutes, everybody. I wonder if I could do it in 5. Who knows?
Yeah. And I just do, as far as strength training these days, I'm doing a plank and push-ups. And like that's the extent of my strength training. And it works and it helps. And I'm actually feeling the benefits from it.
Right. So troubleshooting these habits helps us see, again, the role that they play in our lives, the way that they manifest in our day-to-day lives, and then deciding on one low-hanging knot, low-hanging knots in the trees.
Yeah.
I like mixing metaphors. But deciding on the one that you're ready to work on. You know what? I work in a 2-story building. I did for 5 years.
Yeah.
2-story building. I would take the elevator to the 2nd floor.
Right.
Every day. What if I decided that when it was practical and when I wasn't carrying heavy boxes or whatever, I would stop taking the elevator and start doing the one flight. Just one. I'm not talking 5 flights, just one flight. Could I do that?
Yeah, I just in real life just moved from a 3rd floor office to a ground floor office. And
condolences.
It used to be very easy in air quotes for me to find excuses to walk up and down the 3 flights of stairs. And now I have to like figure out new ways to work a little harder. Like my building I moved to is only 2 stories and I'm on the ground floor now. So I need to find ways to go up and down the stairs more to make up for those flights of stairs I'm not getting now.
Well, and I think too, when you told me, he was like, oh my gosh, my office is on the 1st floor and it's right across from the kitchen and it's right down from the bathroom.
It is also literally like right across the door that is exactly across the hall from me is the kitchen door. So I don't even have to like walk to get to the kitchen. And the bathroom is really close too. So I've got to like figure out ways now to get all these steps in that were easy for me at the other office.
Well, and I think too, it ties into that identity. And this is kind of what it's all about. We identify as active people. people. We identify as people with a growth mindset who are looking for ways to get in activity. And it's a big deal to, for Donald to actually lament being on the first floor.
It's true. I mean, the me of 6 years ago would have just been, sitting up and down for joy, because I wouldn't have jumped up and down. I would have sat up and down for joy. I would have been so stoked that I had scored an office that was on the ground floor and so close to the kitchen and so close to the bathroom. And now I've turned my mindset around to being the opposite.
I know. I was listening to a podcast and a writer was saying that they had just gotten reserved parking right in front of the building and how excited they were. And I was like, that is a great way to get in steps, not having a good parking spot. What are you talking about?
I know. I don't ever, no, not that they're going to give it to me anyway, but I don't ever want a reserved parking spot close to the building. Like that would just really, I would still park in the far away parking garage.
Exactly. So we identify as active people. We identify as problem solvers. And the swarm of behaviors, whether you're troubleshooting something that you want to stop doing, or you want to add in a new behavior and brainstorm ways to add changes into your life, really gives us the opportunity to be agents of change in our own life. Now, I'm not saying Mr. Bad Habits Ed Sheeran needs to change his lyrics because it's very clever, but I know it wouldn't sell if he was like, I'm a problem solver.
Yeah, exactly.
Solving problems. But we have an opportunity to observe the way that habits play a role in our life. And instead of seeing like we have to make some monumental breaking habit, big statement change, big announcement in our lives, we can untangle these knots one by one and have a rope that is great, amazing, wonderful, straight rope. Good job.
A straight rope ready to use to tie around something again.
Yeah.
Or something.
There aren't enough ropes, just there to be ropes.
Exactly.
So, dear listener, to recap, phase 1 might be to add a new unrelated habit into your life that you want to cultivate. Learn a language, learn scrimshaw. I don't know what you're going to do.
You're taking it back to the nautical thing with scrimshaw.
Oh, yeah. No, also scrimshaw's bad. Don't be bad.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's also illegal. But next step is troubleshoot ways to unravel the knots of unhelpful or unwanted habits. And then again, number 3 is to swap out unhelpful habits for more better, more good habits, but that's another episode. Being an agent of change in your own life feels so much better than deciding that you're a victim and that there's no way to make change, and that because you're a victim, everybody else has it easier. Everybody else just has more willpower. Everyone else is just more motivated. They have better character. This isn't a character flaw. It's a design flaw. And when we realize that we can redesign our lives, that's where the power comes from. And that's where we can celebrate every small change.
Yes, indeed. And boy, I certainly was that person 6 or 7 years ago and for many years before that. Speaking of taking agency in your lives, thank you so much for taking the agency in your life to listen to this podcast. We are grateful for each and every one of you. And we have 200 and some episodes that you can go back and listen to wherever you found this one. And they're also available on our website all the time at weonlylookthin.com.
Yep. And if you are at weonlylookthin.com, head over to the link that says join our support group, Wolt Place, We Only Look Thin Place. It is an accountability and support group for women based on Facebook. We have 2 subscription options, a monthly option with a 3-day complimentary trial and a 3-month subscription with a 7-day complimentary trial to see if Wolt Place is right for you. And in Wolt Place, we often use the swarm of behaviors model to help one another troubleshoot and brainstorm ways to make changes in our lives. It's a great structure around which to be able to really visualize what issues we're going through, support one another, and help others also figure out ways to make changes in their lives.
Yeah, and you get direct access to Catherine Weigel. I mean, like, seriously direct access, like via Zoom, via Facebook questions, like via email. Catherine, I'm really, was amazing before becoming a Tiny Habits coach. I'm being serious. You are so good at this. And now you've added this layer of Tiny Habits coaching. And I feel like people are so lucky in that group to be able to, talk directly to you and get the benefits of your advice, because there's so many times where where I hear a question and I have to really, stop and think about it. And you just seem to have answers like all the time.
I know, but is that just me being bossy? I don't know. I appreciate it.
Maybe.
The group is really great. We do a newsletter. We do multiple Zoom meetings a week. And again, it is not a weight loss plan, but it is a place to show up and be accountable and troubleshoot and be honest about what we're going through on the internet, which is sometimes a hard place to be honest about things. So.
Absolutely. And speaking of the internet, you can also interact with us on social media at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at We Only Look Thin. And we also answer emails, believe it or not, and we would love to hear from you via email. We like episode suggestions. We like to hear compliments, obviously. We like to hear topics that you feel like we haven't gone into for a while. And we will also answer questions. We only look thin at gmail.com. Yep. I'm not sure if I actually said that.
It's fine. Yeah, we might need to troubleshoot a way to respond more quickly, but we're doing our best. Thank you for your patience. We appreciate wait times may vary.
Oh, I like that. Your wait times may vary. I like it.
This is a high volume time for We Only Look Thin. Okay, so we talked about Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Oh, we talked about Apple Podcasts.
Hey, yes, Apple Podcasts.
If you have an extra minute, if you could head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. We have over 500 star reviews, which is awesome. And we also have some great actual reviews. So thank you for doing that. Not only does it boost our mood, makes us know that what we're doing matters in this world, but it also helps others find our podcast. The more ratings and reviews we have, the more Apple boosts us in search results when people are looking for inspirational podcasts like ours.
Yes, indeed. And lastly, if you could do us the favor, if you don't feel like doing any of those things that we just mentioned, if you could at least tell somebody about the show, we would really appreciate it. You think there's somebody in your life who might enjoy the zany antics and helpful, inspirational advice of this podcast, please mention it. We would definitely appreciate it.
Yep.
So if you still can't remember who has a PhD between BJ Fogg, Ed Sheeran, and Weird Al Yankovic, just remember that Catherine and I are an inspiration. The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.